Right, we're live. So it usually takes a moment for a few people to join us. And I forgot to check with you, Amanda. You can see the comments, can't you? On the right-hand side, if you click on comments, that means you can then read any that come in. So we'll hang around a bit and wait till some people have joined us. Just beginning to start now. And if you'd like to put your name in the comments box, say hello to us. It's always nice to know where everybody is and who they are. So I'm based in West Yorkshire. I am at home, sitting in my office today. What about you, Amanda? Where are you?
I'm based in Dorking, down in Surrey. I'm also in my front room. It's quite nice and cosy in here, so I thought it'd be a better place.
Yes, yeah. And sometimes it is about finding the best place. When we do a 4 o'clock webinar, although I am still in here, these days I have to put the cats in our kitchen area and put 2 doors between us because they start thinking it's tea time from about 3 o'clock onwards. And then they start scratching at the door, and that's annoying even if they're not in here. So otherwise they're in here and then they start annoying each other. That's too much. And
it is difficult when you want to be professional, isn't it? And be live on something.
Yeah, yes, absolutely. Anyway, hello to those of you who've joined us so far. Please do put in the comments box who you are. Oh, we've got Louise. Hi, Louise. Living in North Wales, just joined the online course this week and finding it fascinating and helpful. That's fantastic, Louise. So good timing. So if you've got any questions about it, you can ask us, or any questions that pop up as we're talking through things as well. Well, let's start then, Amanda, with you. And I was thinking a nice way to start is actually finding out about the individual, because you're one of our SERPA practitioners. Yeah. And I think it's always interesting to find out how people got into this work for a start, because quite often, and I know yours is a personal journey, mine was more of a professional journey looking into it, but then helped me personally, definitely, but I was actually looking on a professional basis initially. So do you want to give us an idea, first of all, what you were doing before you became a wellbeing coach, and when you, just your journey.
Yeah, just my journey. Well, my journey started long time ago. I started working for the Met Police in 2001. Mm-hmm. And my journey through that took me through being a criminal intelligence analyst. So I was analysing crime, robberies. I also worked on the murder teams, child protection teams. So saw a lot of trauma, and there was So there's a lot that you saw and you had to deal with, but also the fast pace of the job that I was in. Mm-hmm. So everything had to be done yesterday. So there was a lot of go all the time. But a week into me starting my new job in 91, I actually had a car accident. Oh. And that really started off the back pain. Right. That sort of like went on, got worse, and eventually in 99 I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia, and I remember being told about that, and that word then nobody had heard about, and thinking, reading a couple of books, and the first page on one book says there is no cure. Yes. And I remember sort of like reading that, crying my eyes out, and it's just like, okay,
about removing any hope, and especially when the younger you are, you're looking at your life ahead of you.
Well, at that time, just starting, I hadn't just started a new job, but only 8 years into that career, but having 2 young children, trying to hold down a full-time job, and then being told you're going to have this pain for the rest of your life, you can't do anything about it. And at that time, to be honest, I was already running a Brownie group and sort of like, busy doing other things, just trying to do all the things I wanted to do in life, really.
Yeah, but probably not recognizing the need to put yourself first and to
exactly. Yeah. I was busy all the time. So that really started me off. I would say I was lucky enough as a person. There was something in me that was thinking, no, I'm not going to take that there is no cure. I am going to look. I am going to, look around. And I'd done a lot of therapy hopping. I tried every single thing there was going. I mean, lots of physio. I mean, that was the one good thing about working for the Met Police. I had a physio, a very good physio who was into energy work as well. He was actually lovely. And he's the actual one that diagnosed me unofficially first, and then actually pushed me on to get the proper diagnosis. So, you know, I do love physios. But, you know, he had a broader view, you know, he was energy based and everything else. So that was good. But yes, so through that, really, I then decided I would then actually start learning myself different techniques. You know, I became a Reiki master, first of all, because, you know, that interested me. Then I done reflexology and Indian head massage, and it kind of started on those physical side of it, apart from Reiki, which obviously is more spiritual and energy based. But it was more on the, you know, the massage first, because that would help my pain. It would,
absolutely,
you know, relax me from being at the computer all day, you know.
And that's interesting, because I went from more traditional physiotherapy to actually then doing acupuncture, reflex therapy, Reiki. So it's interesting. There's similar sort of therapies that we were learning. But from a different
and I would just throw in there that I think what I was lucky enough to do, I remember going into seeing a pharmacist before I'd done Reiki, all of that, and I was saying to him, you know, what's the strongest painkillers you can give me over the counter? And it was very early in the morning. There was nobody else in the pharmacy at all, and he spoke to me for half an hour about Reiki.
Wow.
And then he said, I don't know where all that come from. I don't know. I've never told anybody else about Reiki, and you should go and find a, you know, learn this. And I think, you know, that was a push, wherever that push was from, but that was a push in that direction, that there was more I could do rather than just after these painkillers. So I was lucky there. But
so starting to take some responsibility for your own health.
I did, And the more I suppose I've learned, the more I then realised actually it was, you know, how massage or physio would help for a little while. It wasn't long lasting. You know, the pain would come back. And then my journey was like, I was then trained as an EFT practitioner and done the tapping, and then matrix re-imprinting to look at past traumas and your limiting beliefs. And then, you know, finding the Chrysalis Effect program, where they looked more at the whole of you, and then your program, you know, and it all kind of then falls into place. And now I can pull all of this together, and it's like, right, you know, I've worked on myself, I've done that, and now, you know, can help others, really.
And this is what I love about this work, that not only are we doing this to help other people, but by understanding and learning this work, we're working on ourselves as well. And I think that to work on ourselves experientially with what we're using to help our clients with, then it actually will help make us a better practitioner.
And I think that's exactly it, isn't it? Because what I would say is I was very much at the beginning, I've learned everything. You know, I've learned this, I've learned about limiting beliefs and traumas, and, you know, even the EFT, I know how to do it, I know the sequences, I know all of this. But that was quite a few years of just having the knowledge, but without actually then saying, okay, when am I actually going to really deeply use this and work on myself? You know, and that is the change. So I think, you know, education is the start, and that's one of the most important things.
Because journey, absolutely.
We have to have the knowledge, we have to have that education. But then I find, I definitely myself, but clients who've come to me, it's like, I've read that book and I've done that and I've done this and done that. It's like, okay, how are you applying that? How are you applying
very academic, very academic, but not necessarily embodying the learning.
And I think it really, you know, you need to find that right practitioner to trust. I think as well that
if you need a practitioner, because there are people that don't. Certainly the online program goes through a lot of information, but and I think, you know, I think all of us benefit from working with a practitioner, but it's not always necessary. Would you agree?
I would agree to the I would say I agree in principle, and I would say to my clients, and this is what I say to any new person that I'm talking to, you know, do this, learn that, if you are finding that there is an area that you keep on not going to, that is when you need a practitioner.
So this is what I mean. What I meant was by sometimes we don't need to see a practitioner because we might resolve that particular pain or whatever and do very well.
Just having that knowledge.
Yeah, absolutely. But I would suggest that working at a deeper level can always be helpful. And sometimes by working with somebody else, you do then start to address things that we either are avoiding because we can't go there, or we're completely unaware that because it might be a behavior or a personality trait or an unresolved emotion from the past that we're not even aware are playing a part in all this. And that's when, yes, it can be helpful to work with somebody else who can actually pick up even things that you say or do or behaviors that you're not aware of, like a quick laugh at the end of a sentence. And hey, did you notice you laughed? And what actually were you feeling?
Exactly. And I think people are quite surprised at how, when we've learned to be, good practitioners and we learn to listen. And we listen,
and that's tough, wouldn't you agree? To begin with, that's tough. Physios do, for example, we work with people, but actually to pause and listen and observe is the most important thing when we're working with people, and it's something that we as practitioners need to learn as well.
And I think you're right, and it is that, that little laugh or something, that's that kind of a nervous laugh at the end of something. Or doing that, or you mention something and all of a sudden it's like somebody's doing this and it's like, well, who is the pain in the neck in your life then, kind of thing. But it's even phrases that people come out with, and I had somebody I was talking to recently, and it's very much like well, I was always known as being bad-tempered. Okay, and they just threw that comment away. It's like, oh, okay, let's go back there. Let's, when did this start? What part of you was always angry? What was happening in your life at that time? Who wasn't listening to you? And I think journaling is good. Love journaling, love the idea. For me, I can't go there very often, but I'm dyslexic. So for some people, writing isn't as easy.
Yeah, definitely.
So I find that I can verbally say it and I can do the tapping at the same time.
Yeah.
And so for me, that works like journaling. I can just have this conversation, but I don't have to write it down. But by doing that, we find out more about ourselves, don't we?
Yeah, absolutely.
At a deeper level.
Yeah. Actually, just before we come on to Louise's comment, it was just making me think that last night my husband and I watched a film that we've watched probably 2 or 3 times before, and I'm trying to remember the name, with Rowan Atkinson, who is in MI7. And anybody listening, if you've got any idea what film I'm talking about, my brain's gone blank, but it's a Rowan Atkinson one where he's an MI7 agent.
Yes.
And I even remember the second bit, it's something reborn. And there's a behavioural specialist observing him, and they talk about, when they talk about Mozambique, where he was, and he's like,
his eyes.
We're saying, I bet he looked in the mirror and had to practice that so much to try and get one eye going on every time Mozambique was mentioned, and then they slow it down. And he was completely unaware of it, but other people can see when they slow it down, it's more obvious. That's what we're looking for, is little things like that actually individuals often are not aware of themselves. And that's where working with someone can help.
Exactly. You can't see.
Thank you, Jane. Johnny English people. That's good. An author, you'd know that.
But that's exactly it. We can't see those bits. We can't see the bits that we're
all right.
Mr. Google, brilliant, Mr. Google.
Google can be helpful sometimes, not necessarily Dr. Google.
No, not Dr. Google, not Dr. Google.
Sorry, Amanda.
Definitely, by working with somebody, I think at some point, you either can have the information, read the books, do the online program, see where you are after that. If you're not quite where you want to be. But I think even working with a practitioner or a wellbeing coach, can take you that one step further anyway.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. I think there's always something that we can work on. There's always something we can uncover that can be helped, that we can find when working with somebody else, because they're reflecting things back, they're observing things. So anyway, going back to Louise, this is just the point where I am. Sorry, this was a while ago when we were saying about, I think, the academically understanding it. Have therapy help for 30 years, and through coming across the TMS journey through Dr. Sano and now SERPA, I know I need to go deeper.
Yeah,
absolutely, Louise. And there are ways of doing that yourself through various somatic work and various parts therapy, things that you can learn yourself. But the deeper stuff, absolutely, it can be really helpful to help you get out of your head and into your body, especially. And that's where I love the way our work is going towards the more somatic approaches. And I certainly gain insights when I start listening to my body rather than staying in my head. So I think avoidance through, this is probably best putting my glasses on for this. I think avoidance through procrastination has been one of my subconscious strategies. Oh, I know that one so well. To deal with repressed emotions. I do worry that I might find it difficult to do this new work alone. Again, you know, if you can find somebody to work with, you can work through it on your own if you want. There's also the private group on Facebook for people working through the online program, or people working with practitioners, and that's again a forum where, you know, you can buddy up. I'm doing a course at the moment, and I'm buddying up with one of our practitioners, so that just to really support each other and sort of have a study partner as well. And it's exactly the same for you. And some our practitioners do, don't they, Amanda? We encourage people to buddy up with somebody else.
Oh, definitely.
It's hard. I find it hard doing an online course, and I develop these. But it's hard having the motivation and commitment to actually stick with it. And if you've got somebody there supporting you, you can support each other. So, Louise, it might be an idea, if you're not on the Facebook group already, to request to join it. It is mentioned at the beginning of the online recovery program, and then just go on there, post on there, and just say you're looking for a buddy. And it doesn't always have to be somebody who's just started this work either. You know, you can mix and match. It's up to you. But yeah, it might be helpful to actually work along, or find a practitioner to work with as well. And obviously, then you're getting the. It's more about whether people want the support and guidance from each other, from up here, or whether you feel you want the support of somebody who can help you go to a deeper level as well. And that might be then, looking for a practitioner to support you.
And it's interesting, I think, what Louise wrote. Hi, Louise. The avoidance through procrastination. That is, if I was looking at it, we look at the different parts of you. So we're all made up of self, you know, which is our unburdened sort of like core of ourself, and then we're made up of different parts, and there could be a part of you that procrastinates, and it does that job very well, because it's like, oh, if I don't do anything, I'm keeping myself safe. If I just sit here on the sofa and don't have to think about anything, I'm not putting myself in any danger. So we get to know that part a little bit more and a little bit deeper. So you could actually, if you're into journaling, you know, or, you know, have a little bit of a dialogue with yourself, you know, this procrastination part of you, and ask it questions. Why are you procrastinating? What's going on? What are you worried about? What are you scared about? And I think, you know, we can answer some of those questions that way, and just get to know that part of us that doesn't want to do something, doesn't want to go forward. And I think that's a little bit of an eye-opener that you can do yourself, or, you know, work with somebody else who can do it with you.
Absolutely. And sometimes just having a good understanding of why we're like that as well. Why are we trying to keep ourselves safe? Why are we procrastinating? It might be, for example, we're afraid of getting something wrong, and maybe one of our parents actually, maybe we were never quite good enough, and we were criticized when we were young. And that might be why now we don't want to reach out there and do something that we might not do perfectly, because we might be criticized. So, and again, understanding that why we had that can be really helpful. And then then the other thing I would say at this point when we're working, because somebody asked this recently on social media, that I recognize I have these personality traits, but what can I do about them? One of them is to understand why we are, rather than getting frustrated and angry that we are procrastinating yet again, but to actually start becoming more, again, this is about somatic, understanding inside how we're feeling, noticing when we're triggered, when we can still be, let's say perfectionism, we might need to be perfect in some ways, maybe in our work. If there's a danger, if we don't do it right, then obviously we've got to be perfect. But when we're doing it in other aspects of our lives, and that's causing us stress, it's actually looking at that, being aware of when we are perceiving that we're feeling stressed. And then I would be suggesting using something like pause, breathe, feel, reassure. So the more we become aware of when we're feeling tense, or whatever personality trait is kicking in, whether we're avoiding, whether we're feeling stressed, whether we're feeling stressed because we're trying to be perfect, or we're not in control, as soon as we notice that, to pause, to calm our breathing right down, and to just really connect our breathing, and to do the heart-mouth breathing, where we're literally breathing in and out for 4, 5, 6 counts, and out for 4, 5, 6 counts. It depends if we're breathing 5. If we are stressed and we're anxious, then we won't be able to just slow it straight down to 5 or 6 breaths a minute, but to be able to just calm it down gradually. So pause, breathe, and then feel, meaning noticing, what am I aware of? Actually, I'm aware of a real tightening here. Okay, and then that's when we can do the self-compassion, the reassure. And the more often we do that, we're starting to break the cycle, aren't we, from automatically going into that. So I still have that strong TMS personality, but those personality traits don't always cause me stress. They're there, but when I'm aware that I'm far less of a perfectionist than I ever was, sending out a newsletter with a mistake in it, a typo, oh my God, in the past that would have been awful. What will people think of me? But actually, I am I don't give a damn about a typo now like that, but I'm so much better at dealing with that, even if I have done something that I just feel, oh gosh, I shouldn't have done that. Actually being kind to myself, acknowledging how I feel, pause, breathe, feel, and then reassure.
Definitely. Me and Carol Randall, who is another SERPA practitioner, we done a little webinar ourselves on overwhelm the other day, and we were chatting on that, and we were talking a little bit about perfectionism as well. And 2 things come up. Good is good enough.
Yeah.
So your good is good enough. And I've forgotten what the other one is. Something like done is better than perfect. Sort of like, rather than waiting all the time for something to be perfect to do something,
just get started,
just get done, Yeah. And I think that's a good thing, as well. Absolutely. Isn't it? And I was saying that to Carol. You were saying about the typo, being dyslexic, so much stress of trying to get something out with everything grammatically correct and spelling. And I was saying to Carol, it was even a case of trying to get it perfect before I would even send it to somebody to be checked, and the stress that put on you. Now it's like, here are my thoughts, and I send it off, and it's like, what can I add? What can I take out? What needs changing? And that's okay, because otherwise it would never get done.
Absolutely. And sometimes, well, I know this is the case, it's easier to edit something than to come up with the whole ideas in the first place. And Zoe and I used to do that when Zoe was working with me. One of us, depending on who had the time and who was doing this particular job, would put everything together. Sometimes it might even be a newsletter, put something together, and then the other one would then go and actually read through it and edit it. It often was Zoe would write out an idea, and then I would go through and pull it apart and put it back together again. But actually, that's easier. That's the easy bit than actually initially coming up with it all.
And I think that's the same, that's the, to me, that's the blank page, syndrome. It's like, if I'm looking at something blank page, it needs to be on there. But I think that is also that you can talk about your own personal recovery journey. It can be so overwhelming. What do I have to start with? And it's like, do I need more exercise? Do I need more rest? And it's like, what do I eat? What do I do? What do I think? And all of a sudden it's like, it's a little bit like New Year's resolutions. There's so much to take on board to start with. that you end up thinking, you know what, that's too much. And like Louise said, I love that, you know, queen of procrastination. You know, you could just sit back and think, you know what, it's easier to do nothing rather than decide what I need to do. And I would say on that, choose the one thing, look at that.
Yeah.
One thing, just concentrate on that. And that's when, I mean, I know I am a practitioner, but that's where, again, a practitioner can help you. If you've taken in all that information and now feel overwhelmed, then working with a practitioner can help you just, and you don't have to be seeing a practitioner that often, even.
No, quite.
You can have some in and out, you know, and help them get you focused on where you need to go. And when you get stuck again, come back. Or if you need to go deeper, come back. Yeah. You know.
And often they say with, you know, change your behaviors, just starting with one, just change one thing or add in one thing. And then just over time, just gradually add in another when that has become more of a habit. So, Louise, you say you're seeing a fairly constant state of fight or flight, not something, no, quite. This is the thing, we're not usually aware of it, are we, Louise? So not aware of it before doing the course. The pause, breathe, feel, reassure is a great tool to help calm my nervous system. Yeah. Do you know what? I use it so much because, you know, we all get triggered. And whether it's because you suddenly have pain or whether you just have triggered because you've seen somebody's name somewhere that triggers you haven't dealt with all that yet, or you think about something, or you get an email that triggers you, then the immediate thing is, it's like the counting to 10, isn't it? But this time you're actually using your body to just calm yourself down, but also noticing how you're feeling. So quite often what people often do is they might pause and breathe and reassure, but they miss out the feel, the acknowledge and express the emotions. And then what we're doing is they think they're doing it properly because they are calming their body down, and there's so much emphasis on self-soothing, self-compassion, kindness, and that's so important. But the step that often is missed is actually when we are triggered, to acknowledge and express how we're feeling and then rationalize, self-soothe.
Yeah, and I agree with you totally there, and that's why I love the EFT tapping as well. Because when we do the EFT tapping, loads of lovely research behind that now, which is, you know, clinical research, which is lovely, and even functional medicine, you know, functional MRI scans have been done on the tapping, and it shows that actually tapping on the ends of the meridians can actually break that connection between like the amygdala. So the amygdala is, you know, that kind of smoke alarm system in your limbic system where all our emotions sit. And it can actually break that. And I know Louise was sort of like saying about, you know, being constantly in that fight and flight, when that amygdala is always there, always looking for danger. And the tapping actually can help, you know, cut that kind of connection. So that's not always going off every, you know, 5 minutes or so. But what you were saying about the feeling, and I love that with like the embodiment stuff that you do as well. And we also do that within the tapping, because it's like we can start with, where is that feeling in the body? You know, well, I feel it in the chest. What color is it? How big is it? You know, what texture is it? What emotion is that feeling holding? And so we really get into that sort of like locating it. What's it doing? What emotion is holding on there? Is there a time before when you felt like this? And then that's when we bring up those other memories that we can work on. But also with the tapping, which I really love, is when you know, often people get stuck with tapping because it's like, I don't know what words to say, you know, and it's like, oh, you know, there's scripts out there, but the best words are your own words. So you do a truth round. So even though I'm feeling really whatever at the moment, and I've got this pain in my back and I really don't know what to do with it, and I'm just getting so fed up with it, and everybody wants a little bit of me and I don't know what to do about it, and we just go through the tapping points, actually saying exactly how you feel. This pain in my back, there's this burning sensation, it just keeps on stabbing me all the time, it just won't go away. We're doing a couple of things at that time. You know, we're also going into our body. We're finding where something is, where it's sitting, but we're also doing the energy work of tapping on the meridians that actually have been shown to calm down the nervous system, reduce the cortisol, reduce the adrenaline output, and take you out of that fight and flight and put you then back into a more parasympathetic state. So again, I think it's important to have lots of tools in your toolbox.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what I love about this. There are so many different strategies that we can use to help us. So it's not like we've got to do everything, but actually just using whatever you feel attracted to at that time, or whatever you, or practice one for a while. And then most people then start to realize that there are some that they feel more helpful for them.
And and I mean, I know I go on about it, but the tapping side of it can be used in two ways. It can be used in that self-soothe. I teach a method that's called just tap and breathe. So literally you're pretending you're blowing through a straw, so you really purse lips, and while you're breathing, you're tapping on one point. So you breathe in and out, change to the next point, breathe in,
right,
and out. And you just go through all the tapping points with that, doing that breath in, breath out. So you don't have to think about the words. So when we are in overwhelm, or, you know, we can't think of those words, again, we can use it as a self-soothing. It just brings us right back down. So there's many different ways. And then you can use it deeper to go into, you know, past traumas and beliefs and things like that. So, you know, using it in many different ways, which I think is lovely. And people can learn this themselves.
Yes. You know, do you have any free things on your website that people could download, or anything to get an idea about what it is?
Yeah, on my website, there's a link to my YouTube channel. So I've got a couple of ones of an introduction to EFT and one on anxiety. Plus there's things that me and Carol are putting out monthly at the moment on different topics like overwhelm and anxiety. And then in each one of those webinars, there's a tapping meditation that goes with it. So there's lots out there.
So if you put your website link in there, then at least everybody can have anybody who's interested could actually have a look then, can't they?
Yeah, I can do that.
Great, thank you. So Louise is saying, missing out on the feeling part helps me understand why I found meditation difficult to sustain. I can sit and breathe and relax my body, but as soon as thoughts and emotions come in, I know I've tried to be rid of them rather than acknowledge them and then reassure myself this feels like a missing link to me. Yeah, absolutely, Louise. And people seem to think that about meditation, that they need to push away the thoughts, that we're not supposed to think. No, it's about not attaching ourselves to those thoughts. And even if we're not in the emotion, in the meditation, going into the feeling side of it, but we're sitting there and we're noticing a thought, but we're not following it. So it's like those ticker tapes that go at the bottom of the screen in the news, and that a thought comes up and then it just passes by. Whereas what we tend to do is actually we hold on to that and then we go into thinking. And yes, that's bound to happen at times, but while meditating, then at that point, as soon as you're aware you're doing that, it's about being kind to yourself and recognizing, oh, I'm caught up here, and then going back to focusing on maybe the breath or whatever it is that you're focusing on. It might be part of the body or scanning the body.
And it's interesting when we do the tapping, when things come up and it's quite strong, you tap and it's safe to have these feelings. It's safe to feel like this.
And I often, if I'm meditating, I'll just put my hand on my heart.
Yeah.
And that in itself can be just really calm.
Exactly.
But allow me, it's safe to feel these emotions. And if an emotion comes up, I allow it to come up, and then go down, and then just carry on with what I'm doing.
And that's it. And strong emotions are normally only there, that wave, so like about 90 seconds of them coming up and then going again. So it's just sitting and acknowledging. So I would say to Louise, you know, brilliant that you've noticed them come up, but be brave enough now just to think, oh, okay, that emotion's bubbled up for a reason. I can just sit with that, either let that go, or maybe that's something I need to work on at a deeper level, and use it as information, I suppose. Why is it coming up?
Yeah. And in that moment, just literally observing it with curiosity. And I think that's the thing, rather than going, oh, and sort of ignoring it or going back to trying to meditate. to actually just sit and be curious and observe what's happening, because, as you said, Amanda, emotions just come up and they go down. But as they're coming up, we often just go, ugh, because we're so used to either unconsciously or consciously stopping them from coming up.
And I think we can apply the internal family systems, the IFS way of doing it, the parts way of doing it. So when this emotion comes up, and be it sadness or anger, it's like, okay, I recognize, there's a part of me that feels angry, or there's a part of me that has this sadness. And when we can feel that, and sometimes we can give it a color and a shape and everything else, but we can ask that emotion, can you give me a little bit of space? And then, when we can give it a little bit of space, it's not sitting on ourselves where it's all encompassing. We can then get to know that. We can see that emotion, get to know its story. We find out what's happened. Why is it so angry? Why is it so sad? And I think it gives us that little bit of space where it's not all overwhelming. That feeling, isn't it?
And also not linking ourselves to it, not becoming part of it. And I think this is, when people are saying, I'm so angry, or I'm depressed, I'm sad, we are holding on to that as part of, as us, basically. We are sad. No, we are feeling sad. And if we say that we're feeling depressed, sad, or angry, or whatever, then that separates it from us. So like you say, that's just a part, and that part can sort of just, okay, give us some space, move over, or come up and be acknowledged, and then we'll look at you later on. And that's the same as people saying, my back pain, my headache. It's easy to say that, but that again is holding on to it. It's mine. It's mine.
Yes, it's mine. I'm not going to. And that brings you on to, like, well, this pain, what is this pain stopping you from doing? Is it stopping you from doing something that you've been asked to do that you don't want to do? It can also be that safety mechanism. If I didn't have this pain, what will others want of me?
Yeah.
So these are good questions to ask, aren't they? It's sort of like, well, if I didn't have this pain, I'll have to be running around and looking after so-and-so and so-and-so and the children and going to work and doing all these things. It's easier to have this pain. It's not an easy thing to have, but it's easier to have this pain, it feels like, than to actually have to talk to other people and say, actually, no, I don't want to do that. Thank you very much. Or that is too much for me to do. It's easier to say, no, I've got back pain, I can't do it, or I've got this headache, leave me alone.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I just think if anybody else has any questions, and you again, Louise, if you'd like to, anybody got any questions, or comments or suggestions, then by all means pop them in the comments box. I remember a client from many years ago, actually, who came to see me with back pain. And it was after his assessment, he emailed me and he said, I've realized why I have pain, this back pain. It's because he wanted to change his career, but he wasn't happy in his profession that he was working in, and he had a young family, and he didn't feel that he wanted to do, he was bored, he wanted to do something different, but he needed to pay his mortgage and look after his kids and his wife and whatever. So actually having back pain stopped him from even going down the physically trying to look at what he could do to change things. So when you understand that, then you can at least start to look at what could you do to try and make things easier.
And I think you were right with what you were saying about, when we have different parts of us, and one part might have this pain, this pain in the back and stopping us from doing something. And when we get to know that part a little bit better, and we get to know its fears and its worries, it makes sense. And then there's no need to have that pain anymore. There's no need to generate that.
And I think that's a critical, sorry, Amanda, I think that's a critical point, because so many people, when they come to us initially, are trying to get rid of their pain. And they are, they're in a rage with their pain. They're so angry with their pain. Often one of the questions I'll ask initially is, how do you feel towards your pain? And almost invariably it's angry, frustrated, whatever. but once, and then they really can't understand it. One, the terminology surrendering to pain, because they feel like surrendering to the pain means it's just going to attack them and that's it. But if you think of a war situation, when you one side surrenders to the other side, the other side doesn't continue to attack it. Well, they shouldn't. They back off.
Yeah,
they back off. And that's the thing with this. The more we push and resist and fight and attack and get angry with ourselves, the more we're fueling our pain. And that's why it's so important to recognize that, as you said, we need to work on the underlying reasons for having pain, and then we don't need the pain. It will just
and to welcome all of those different parts of us. All parts are welcome. You know, be it the pain part or the procrastination part or this, you know, the sad part. All parts are welcome. All parts are trying to do their job and keep you safe with love, basically. But they're using whatever tools. And it's like, well, if you didn't listen to me when I was telling you that's a little bit too much, well, I'll give you that back pain. Now you're listening to me, aren't you? You know, so it's like, well, I listen to you now. I listen to those underlying causes. We get to know you better. What are those things that have gone on? And what I often find is sometimes it's previous traumas that have gone on. And during that time, beliefs have been made. You know, the world's an unsafe place out there, or I've got to work really hard to get money, or whatever that belief was made. And then when we look at those beliefs and, you know, whether they're yours, whether they're serving you, and we can re-imprint them and make more positive beliefs, again, you know, this is where these other parts of us don't have to cause us pain anymore. You know, we're taking away their reason.
Absolutely.
Really, for doing that. And as you say, you know, it's all done with love. It's curiosity, you know, and it's just like, oh, let's be curious about that. Where do we think that comes from? How are you feeling about that? So
absolutely,
definitely.
Okay, Louise again. I've been laid up since Christmas Day with back spasms. It's taking longer than usual to release. I like your question, Amanda, asking why I'm experiencing this. I know it's a strong, repeated message that I haven't felt able to hear. I'm listening more now and feel a lot more hopeful for having found this work. That's fantastic, Louise. And actually, I'll tell you, Louise, of two different examples of when I had severe back pain. I think I've mentioned it before in one of these talks before, but very briefly. I used to get lots of different recurring pains, basically, sciatica, back pain, neck pain, all sorts. And I remember soon after leaving the NHS, waking up one morning in agony with sciatica, and really severe sciatica down my leg. I couldn't put my shoes and socks on for about 3 weeks. I ended up going to see a practitioner, but basically my response when I woke up with back pain was, you know, gritting my teeth, holding my breath, tightening everything up. Couldn't put my shoes and socks on because everything was so tight, and because I knew it was going to be more painful, I tightened up even more. And so I just had to keep coping until, over a period of a few weeks, things with some help with treatment in the end with craniosacral therapy, she was the first person who said to me, so what's going on in your life? Nobody had ever asked me that question before. This is about 20 years ago now. I just left the NHS, and I had set up my own business, and I had to make it work. I'd lost my salary, my husband's self-employed. Anyway, moving on to another 15 years, and my husband and I were going on holiday, and it was pretty stressful in the lead up because we had my mother-in-law with severe dementia who was in a home, had just gone into a home, and also because my husband's working in agriculture, we never know when we can go away until about a few days before. We're hoping to go this year sometime, goodness knows when. Anyway, so for the 3 months before, so are we going to go? No, are we going to? Oh, we're going to go. No, all right, we can go next week. Right, quick, cancel all patients and sort everything out. I thought I was dealing with it, and I felt quite calm actually, and I was doing all my own self-care. On the aeroplane, going going on holiday, we were celebrating our 30th wedding anniversary. We'd just ordered some Bucks Fizz, and I picked up my phone to look for something, and I didn't realise you could get texts, and it was the care home ringing to say my mother-in-law had been taken into hospital urgently. And it was like, oh my God, what do I do? Luckily, it was a day that Zoe was working, and I was able to message her because I couldn't get hold of my sister-in-law. So we sorted it out. By the time we landed, she was back at the care home, so everything was fine. Did I journal? Did I do anything more than sort of calm breathing and a bit of emotional awareness? No. Okay, we were going to the Caribbean for the first time ever to celebrate our 30th wedding anniversary. Got off the airplane, yes, come on, we're going to have a good time now. Woke up in the morning in agony with sciatica. The main difference with this, Louise, though, was instead of going, oh, which of course initially I did, you go, was then immediately breathe out. And then I did some really slow, just gradually slowed my breathing down, kept it calm. When able, I rolled over onto my side and sat up. And I sat on the edge of the bed, talking to myself, self-soothing, listening to myself, allowing myself to notice how I was feeling. Goodness only knows what my husband thought I was doing, because all of this. And I, in the end, I just was saying to myself, okay, do you know what? I thought we were dealing with this, but maybe there's some more stuff we need to do. But I promise you, we'll have a really quiet couple of days. Let's go to the beach. Let's go to do some meditation. We'll do some journaling, and I'll be kind to myself. And then I remember needing to get dressed, and as I was getting dressed and putting some shoes on, I just breathed in and out a few times, and then on the out breath, I bent down to put my shoes on, because then there was no spasm. The pain had been excruciating, and it eased off, and it was probably about a 5 out of 10. By the end of the day, it was probably a 3 out of 10. When I went to bed, I said to myself, right, and this is in a very gentle and compassionate way, when we get up in the morning, why don't we go for a run along the beach and have a swim and meditate in that beautiful gazebo in a really gentle way, putting into my head that this is what I expected to do in the morning. I woke up in the morning with the pain a little bit worse, but got out of bed, got my running gear on, and just gradually went off for a walk. As it became easier, I started running, went for a swim, did some meditation, and it just eased off over those 48 hours. And the reason I say that is that my whole mindset was completely different. I was fighting the pain. I was resisting the pain before. Whereas this time I realized this is not a problem. I've not injured myself. This is me not dealing very well with something that's been going on. And actually then recognizing, okay, so let's get ourselves sorted. Let's just have a quiet time while I get this sorted. So, and that's really important. That's the main difference, I think, between working on the symptoms and working on the underlying cause and being
yes. And it's having that awareness, isn't it? It's like, you've learned how to deal with this now. Yeah. And it's having that awareness to sit with those emotions and feelings, isn't it?
Yeah.
I was just looking at Cara's question there. How quickly should I to start seeing some results with this approach, or is totally individual? I've had chronic daily migraines for 11 months now and started working with a practitioner 3 weeks ago. And I just wanted to say, it is individual. When I've worked, especially with clients with chronic migraines, it's interesting. Migraines to me, when I look at them, it's all about boundaries, and whether, people are overstepping the boundaries with you. Have you got set up your own boundaries well enough? And I find with clients that, to start with, until we can sometimes drill down, we're finding where those boundaries have been overstepped. And that is a big thing. And that all depends how deep somebody wants to go. So, you might get somewhere in the first session and think, oh, yes, actually, it's my boss that keeps on doing this to me and asking me to do these things, and I'm not happy with it. Or it could be something that comes up in a few other sessions when you are feeling safe enough to actually say, oh, actually, this is how I'm feeling, or this is what I'm is happening. And, and it's also looking exactly at, what happened 11 months ago and 6 months before that and a year before that. It sometimes is that build up. And at that point 11 months ago, that was the tipping point. But have a look back at that, journal. This is my, criminal analyst head coming in. I love timelines. That's what I was trained to do.
Oh, yeah.
Looking at timelines, obviously for things that weren't very nice, but I am very good at going back and looking at what happened here, what happened there, what was you feeling, how was, who was with you, what was doing that, that's my who, what, why, when I learned, but I apply it now to what I'm doing with clients, you know, so we can really drill down to pinpointing where this has come from.
And looking at patterns as well.
Exactly.
Because the migraines might have started 11 months ago, but it might have been, like you say, a boundary that maybe has not been kept for so long, and then maybe this is a bigger
yes,
overstepping the mark or whatever than there had been in the past. But this was an issue that had maybe been going on for years, and therefore it can take time. You know, and in fact, Cara, if you want to email us email me on admin@serpa.org, then I can put you in touch with, you know, someone who did have chronic daily migraines, who's done really well. There's usually somebody who'd be happy to talk to you. Or if you're in the private group, if you're working with a practitioner at the moment, then you should have access to the Facebook group, the private Facebook group. The people I'm thinking about at the moment, I think, are in that group as well. So you could always reach out to them and just say what you're experiencing, and just ask if anybody's got any suggestions. But yes, if it's chronic and it's daily migraines, I think 3 weeks is, you know, you could gain some insights in those three weeks, absolutely. But I don't put a time limit on this, because it can, and because if you're putting a time limit on it, again, you're putting pressure on yourself. So work on you, and it can be layers, can't it, Amanda? You know, just working on various different layers and what insights are coming up as well. But you'll get there, I'm sure.
And it's interesting. I mean, in our family, migraines have run, and I remember, you know, there was one spate with myself that I had daily migraines for about 3-4 months. So I know how tiring that can be. And but at that point, I didn't quite know. I wasn't doing what I know now. You know, I would look at that completely different. But you know, obviously something could change. But you know, it's now, if I do get a migraine, it's easier to, like what you were saying about, you know, when you went off on your holiday, it's easy for me to sit here and it's like, okay, what am I unhappy about? Who's overstepped that mark? What have I been asked to do that I don't want to do? You know, or what's happening now? And then
can I just make a point that I would imagine you're doing that not in a full-blown migraine, but at the first point when you realise you're
first point, that first point,
which is a lot easier, especially with migraines.
It is, but you know, it's interesting. You know, on another point, completely, but I trained also as a nerve reflexologist, and there was a couple of points that I learned to press on straight away when you first get that feeling or first get that aura, and they helped me tremendously, you know, so I could do that and then look at, you know, what's coming up. So you know, again, it's another technique that you can learn to help yourself, isn't it?
Absolutely. And sometimes it can be just something so that you think is so insignificant. Like, for example, somebody is saying to me that they managed for the first time to avoid a migraine in the morning, because they realized that they were thinking, like they said to themselves, right, if Georgie says, if I wake up with a migraine, what was going on the night before, or sort of leading up to that point?
Yeah.
And they started look back and realize that actually their young child had climbed into bed with them, and that actually they hadn't managed to get much sleep, and they needed to be able to be awake and ready to work the next day. And actually, despite the fact that the child was only 5, they were really angry with that child.
Yes.
And so they journaled to offload, express how they felt, and then rationalized it and back to being, you know, having a loving relationship. But that was the first time they'd avoided actually having a full-blown migraine. And that seems just something so little, because it's something that the sort of thing that people put up with, you know, often if you've got young children.
Yeah, and exactly. And it is being able to acknowledge those feelings, because, you know, being angry at that child for climbing into bed with you, that child might have had a bad dream or needed comforting, and you feel then bad being angry at a child. For like, well, all this child wanted was a hug and come into bed with us, and I should be okay with that. But it's disrupted my sleep, and now I feel, you know, tired, and I need to have you know, I've got a busy day. I need all of my energy.
Conflict of emotions, and this anger being triggered, but not allowing them to express it, because they shouldn't feel angry towards a 5-year-old child.
Exactly. You know, all it wanted was a cuddle and a bit of warmth, you know, coming into bed and sharing that with you. So that's it. That's when that journaling or tapping, you know, is like, you know, even though I feel like this, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, and seeing it from both sides, isn't it, sometimes?
Yeah. Well, we're going to be finishing soon, so if anybody's got any other questions, by all means ask. I'm glad the story helped Louise. I thought it might, because it's such a common response to pain, is just to react to it and also fear that there's something wrong.
Yes.
Generally, it's actually okay. My thought now would be, okay, well, what am I not dealing with properly, well enough, or whatever.
Exactly that. Exactly that. I mean, I've had one very recently. I bought a new pair of walking boots before Christmas, quite a few weeks before Christmas, and they cost me a lot of money. But I walk every single day. It's like, I deserve a nice pair of walking boots. I was out walking, got sciatic pain with it. And it's like, no, I've walked this walk all the time. You know, it's like, yes, it's something different. And so in my head, I'm thinking, you know, it's very easy sometimes to go down the road of the physical, you know, and it is, well, is it my gait? Is it this? Is it that?
Yeah.
And I'm thinking, no, actually, what is really worrying me, and what was really worrying me, is I just spent £200 on a pair of walking boots. And it scared me, you know, because it was a lot of money. I'd done it off the internet, didn't go into the shop. It's like, what if they're wrong? What happens if they don't fit properly?
Yeah.
And that was the worry. That was the worry. Oh, and there's a cat's tail. So yes, so sometimes you know, it's spending that time, isn't it, actually to look to see what is really the underlying. We can look sometimes too quickly, I think, sometimes at the physical parts of it, rather than no, actually what is going through my mind at the moment.
Are you doing something you normally do without any problem? And if so, okay, what's going on?
What's going on there?
How am I feeling? Yeah. Okay, well, I think we'll draw this to a close now, but thank you very much. Thank you for your questions, Louise. I hope it's been helpful. And thank you all for coming along. I hope that's helped as well, Cara. Nice to see you again, Jane. Or not see you, but see your name. And yeah, take care, everybody, and a happy new year.
Yeah, happy new year to everyone. Bye for now.
All the best, everyone. Bye.